First of all, thank you for those who sent their haiku last night. Don't forget to send me your haiku. And Michael Croth, no, let me say it right, Michael Croth, even sent a photo to go with his. So if you're so inspired, send a photo if you like as well. There was a question that came up last night and I forgot to address it at the end. And who is that asked me, what is a Benedictine oblate? There, Martha asked me, okay. Well, a Benedictine oblate is a lay associate of a monastery. They call them oblates, O-B-L-A-T-E. And what it is you make promises to live the Benedictine values in your personal life. And what are those values? Listening, community, hospitality, humility, balance, prayer, and praise. And so, Benedictine oblates could be married, single, they could be retired, professional working people. It's very similar. I'm sure you have lay associates, Father Garrick, lay Cistercian associates. Does Mepkin have them?
Not as such, but we have people we call affiliates.
Affiliates. Mm-hmm. It's very similar to that. So it's a very wonderful community to belong to, and it's meant a great deal, especially during this pandemic, to have that spiritual community. And you are affiliated with a specific monastery. So you take you make your promises to a particular monastery. In my case, Mount St. Scholastica in Atchison, Kansas. Okay. Any other questions from yesterday or comments before we begin? Okay. Everybody ready to go then? All right. Well, we'll begin again today with a Visio Divina, which I explained was also a Benedictine practice of praying with images. So I'm going to call up the Visio Divina, and it contains a song that was written by a Benedictine oblate herself. So you'll hear her original composition. And she's someone I referenced yesterday who puts her haiku prayers on Facebook every day with a photograph, Pat Lake O'Connelly. And then Emily, our friend from the Chicago chapter of the Merton Society, will read as instead of an opening prayer, a beautiful poem by Mary Oliver. Everybody see that so far? Can you see it?
Yep, we sure do.
And you can hear it.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Be still, and know that I am God. I have told you not to worry. Now be still. Be still, be still, and know that I am God.
Emily.
Invitation by Mary Oliver. Oh, do you have time to linger for just a little while out of your busy and very important day for the goldfinches that have gathered in a field of thistles, for a musical battle to see who can sing the highest note or the lowest, or the most expressive of mirth, or the most tender? Their strong, blunt beaks drink the air as they strive melodiously, not for your sake, and not for mine, and not for the sake of winning, but for the sheer delight and gratitude. Believe us, they say, it is a serious thing just to be alive on this fresh morning in the broken world. I beg of you, do not walk by without pausing to attend to this rather ridiculous performance. It could mean something. It could mean everything. It could be what Rilke meant when he wrote, "You must change your life."
Thank you, Emily. I thought we would take some time today to do a few activities that help us to look at what really matters in our lives. We've had so many concerns this past year and so many distractions that it could have taken, it could have either made us more focused on what really matters, or it could have taken our attention away from it. So let's take a look at, oh, somebody's writing, what is the title of the Mary Oliver poem? Invitation. Invitation. Okay. So I'm going to bring up another series. Any other questions before we start? Okay. I'm going to bring up another series of slides. Okay, so this morning, our topic is pausing to look at what really matters in our lives. So I'll talk for a few minutes now, and then I'm going to show a little video of my friend, Brother Paul Quinnen, and then we'll do an activity together. I'm assuming everybody can see the page. Okay. There's a famous passage in the Rule of Saint Benedict, the 6th century guide for monastic living, the guide that's still used to this day. And it's a passage that comes at the beginning of the rule in the prologue, where Saint Benedict says, "Day by day, remind yourself you are going to die. Hour by hour, keep careful watch over all you do." Now that line has always stuck in my head. It isn't so much for me some kind of morbid over-fascination with death, but a helpful reminder that our lives on this earth have a finite beginning and a definite end. And of course, as a lover of Broadway musicals, I find echoes of that line in Benedict in a popular song Stephen Schwartz would write centuries later for his musical Godspell. And I'm sure you know the lyrics. Day by day, oh dear Lord, 3 things I pray: to see thee more clearly, to love thee more dearly, and follow thee more nearly, day by day. Saint Benedict would have approved. I've also always been drawn to literary characters that have this keen sense of our mortality and the need to live fully and to live well. And here's that iconic scene from the ending of the 1964 film Zorba the Greek, where the exuberant Zorba teaches the rather circumscribed English writer Nico how to dance. And up in the corner, there's Zorba's famous philosophy. Some men live as if they would never die. I live as if I could die any minute. The artist Cindy Chang, over here in the corner, is known for her innovative street art. And in one of her most famous projects, she would paint on the sides of public buildings the words, "Before I die, I want to." And then she'd leave a blank space and some colored chalk for passersby to fill in their response. And here you could see some of those responses. Can you see that top one? Mine is blocked. But you can see, before I die, I want to be someone's Calvary. Before I die, I want to tell my mother I love her. Before I die, I want to live in another country. One that I read about, but that isn't on this particular wall, but always brings a lump to my throat when I think about it. Someone wrote, "Before I die, I want to hold him in my arms one more time." Again, not a morbid fascination with death. I think Cindy Chang's art project is encouraging us to distill and articulate those things that are most important to us. A person who's had a profound effect on my life, in addition to Jonathan, is my friend, Brother Paul Quinnen, a Trappist monk of the Abbey of Gethsemani. And here we are in the garden at Gethsemani. You can't see it, but we're underneath our favorite ginkgo tree, which many of you might know who have visited Gethsemani. And one of the lessons Brother Paul taught me is the importance of play, because I'm a workaholic and an overachiever and a perfectionist. He's urged me to climb trees, to walk barefoot on the ground, to, as he says, reclaim the intelligence of my feet, and to walk backwards sometimes to gain a fresh perspective on a familiar place. He articulates a lot of his philosophy in a profile I did of him for PBS that aired in 2011. And here are just a couple of gems from that interview. The purpose of life is life. You are to be just to be. Everybody measures their importance by how useful they are. That's not it. Rest with what you have. Be grateful for it. The chemistry of gratitude can transform what you have. Contemplation is perhaps a big fat word for gratitude. And one I particularly like, when I get into my self-righteous mode and thinking that I've got everything figured out. As Merton said, if you think you've arrived, you're lost. So before we go into the activity that I was thinking about, I'm going to ask Joy if she can cue up the short video I have of Brother Paul. I'm going to stop share for a moment so Joy can share. What I ask you to do, though, is to pay attention to the things he says that might speak to you personally at this moment in your life. Hey, Joy, we're not getting audio. Are you doing the audio share?
Let me check.
Share computer audio. Every night for 20 years. Yeah, maybe he goes around back where he finds his
I will try that again. I checked it. I'm not sure what's going on. Let me try it one more time.
No, the audio is fine. I was just asking you to go back to the beginning. So
Oh, certainly.
thank you. Thank you. The lumber shed at the Abbey of Gethsemane in northern Kentucky. It's late February. Each night at 8 o'clock, Brother Paul Quinnen walks to the shed as he has every night for 20 years. He goes around back where he finds his mattress. This is where he will sleep. Outdoors, no matter the weather.
I can't be a full-time hermit, but I can be a nighttime hermit. And there's something about waking up in the middle of the night and there's nobody around. There's a kind of an edge of solitude that you cannot experience in any other way.
Here, a monk seeks to live every moment in the presence of God, in unity with God. Brother Paul came to Gethsemane 52 years ago. He was 17, inspired by reading the autobiography of the famous Trappist monk Thomas Merton, who introduced many Americans to the contemplative life. Merton would eventually become his spiritual director and would encourage Brother Paul to write. Thomas Merton said monks and poets are people who live on the margins of society. Brother Paul decided to become both. He says monks and poets remind us to pay attention to the world around us, to focus on what's essential.
Poetry is the language of the heart, and it's the language of the imagination. And so the mind abides in silence. Contemplation is an abiding in silence. And what comes out of silence are words of the heart, words of love. When the heart is really full, the mouth goes silent.
Indeed, many contemplatives say the transcendent is beyond words. Brother Paul has published 3 books of his poetry and is working on a 4th.
The hood, a hiding place for the head, a portable anonymity, a refuge from artificial light, a cover to make dimness dimmer, to make time slow down.
Ideas for his poems usually come to him on long, solitary walks across the monastery's vast stretches of woods and fields. During each walk, he writes a haiku, a Japanese form of poetry, usually 3 lines, 17 syllables, and set in nature.
The monastery is a poetic context to begin with, and we live in a beautiful environment, and nature is so present day in and day out. I discovered the haiku, and the haiku is such a short form. I started combining it with my meditation practice. Above dim snowfields, lone light of Venus, lone wail of goose pleading for spring. You're in the God's beauty, and it's physical. It's almost like a symphony flowing by me as I walk along, relaxed, and it's a beautiful experience.
Occasionally, over the years, he would climb to the top of this water tower until finally the abbot closed it off. Brother Paul quips, "This used to be a fun place." It was this little cottage, the Hermitage, where Thomas Merton spent years in isolation, praying and writing. Retreatants visit the abbey year-round, seeking to slow down at a place where prayer is the main form of activity.
I think they come here seeking for quiet and, an atmosphere of prayer and maybe some seeds of wisdom, and just to see what it is to live this kind of life.
What purpose do you see in living the Trappist life in the modern world?
Well, I think the purpose of the monastic life in the modern world is to show that we don't need a purpose. The purpose of life is life, and you are to be just to be. Everybody measures their importance by how useful they are. So you need to shatter that. Somebody has to come along now and then just say, listen, That's not it. That's not what life is.
48 monks now live at the Abbey. Once there were more than 200. Brother Paul says many people are still attracted to the regular prayer and quiet rhythms of monastic life, but few are willing to stay.
I wish they would perceive the genuineness of the life. Man has to have, a home and a career, and these are ways of achieving identity. Well, what we do is, in a sense, forsake our identity. We give up our identity to get a new identity, which really God formulates for us.
And yet, Brother Paul says you don't have to live in a monastery to seek what is important.
If you just sort of rest with what you have, be grateful for it. There again, the chemistry of gratitude can transform what you have. Contemplation is simply maybe a big fat word for gratitude. To sense the presence of God in life and around me and in other people gives me a very deep gratitude.
Today, the average age of the monks here is 70. Funerals are a regular part of life.
A monk lives in the presence of death, and you come here to die. You're going to give up your whole life. If you decide to give up your whole life to Christ, well, it's in Christ's hand. Curved walkway. The burial ground fills with practical sounds from tierce bell, drenching the dumb, unheeding crosses. Alone I skirt around this rim of destiny, stirred by the bell, till someday I'm left unbusied in this ground's silent keep.
Brother Paul says that to be a monk is to live at the heart of a mystery, to live in a perpetual state of becoming. To him, that is both the power and poetry of monastic life.
We never get there. And as Merton said, if you think you've arrived, you're lost. People in the world come, they come here on retreat. They ask me, how long you been here? I answer as another elsewhere, 52 years, but it is a fiction. How long have I been here? Excuse me, I haven't gotten here yet.
For Religion and Ethics News Weekly, this is Judy Valente at the Abbey of Gethsemane. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Would anybody like to talk about something that jumped before we go on, that jumped out at them from Brother Paul's interview? He says so many things. Michelle, was that a hand raised?
Yeah, that's a hand raised.
Thank you.
Decades ago, I learned about dying to self and that we're living to die. And I'll tell you, when that shift was made, it took away so much performance and so much overdoing and so much of everything. It's like, I really have to think now, and I'm adjusting my life. One thing COVID has done is it actually saved my life, because I was in a house that had natural gas poisoning. And so reflecting back now, all those years I missed, I am now taking that same concept and renewing and reviving the next part of my life. So I think that's a really important lesson that he talks about through this clip. So thank you for sharing it.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for that sharing. Anything else jump out on it at anybody?
I was struck by the purpose of life is to be, but it takes most of our life to find that.
Yeah, that's very powerful. That was very powerful for somebody like me who always felt that I had to be judged by how well I did things. So that was very powerful. Martha, I think you had you waved.
Yes, I did. I was really struck first in the beautiful song that you had earlier, "Be Still and Know That I Am God." That's really a very central passage for Quakers, as you might imagine. But I loved that he said, contemplation is the abiding in silence. When the heart is full, the mind goes silent. And that's always a challenge, right? But I love that concept. You know, if we can feel the fullness of our heart, then our mind can rest, be at rest.
Yes, and silence is so important in your Quaker tradition. Long before I knew anything about the Benedictine monastic tradition and silence, which we'll talk about this afternoon, going to a Quaker meeting house had a profound effect on me, experiencing a traditional Quaker service. Yeah, thank you, Martha. Did I see another? What, Doug, were you leaning forward, Doug Hertler? Okay, I guess that wasn't Doug.
No,
Yes.
but
I'm sorry, Doug, and then Pete.
I think that we've heard it in different ways, in different forms over the years, but the idea of live today like it's your last, or remember each day that you will die. I know personally that that idea, that deep contemplative reality, is not lived out certainly fully in my life. Maybe there's a fleeting moment here and there, but something in me recognizes that if I were really truly capable of experiencing those words at their deepest level, that there would be a freedom and that chemistry of gratitude that Brother Paul spoke of, that I think A, is so desperately needed in the times that we live in, and B, is so terribly fleeting. So those are powerful words to try to continue to penetrate, I think, in one's prayer life.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. Pete? Oh, Pete, you're muted still.
Figured it out. Sorry, I have a whole different setup than I did last night. Okay. Brother Paul was talking, and I think in the span of a minute or a minute and a half, he said gratitude 3 times. And that struck me. And in the context that he said it, it was in combination with the solitude of the Abbey, but also in building a relationship with God. And I thought that was really neat. And I immediately was reminded of Pope Benedict, and I think it's his encyclical, Saved in Hope. And if it's not that source, I can find the other one. But his point is, Pope Benedict's point was about the importance of gratitude and being able to take the time for expressing that with God, for God, in the things that we do, in the persons that we are, being more cognizant of it. So I thought that was really quite cool, and it was a way to me to help spur my interior reflections about things for myself.
Great, Pete. Thank you. And Pete, don't forget to share. Pete wanted to share a link to a short video. I think it's only a minute and a half of Pope Francis talking about prayer, contemplative prayer. So Pete will do that before our morning is up. He could put it in the chat. Who else? Oh, yes, Jessica.
Mute. Now you can hear me. I was really impressed how he said, I can't be a hermit within my community, but I can be a nighttime hermit. And how he took the calling to be a hermit and made it happen, even though he's in the constraint of his community. And that made a deep impression on me to be where you are, but to know you have a calling and to make that happen.
Right. Thank you.
Mary Ellen's got her hand up.
Okay.
I was touched and I'm continually challenged by his last words about, am I here yet? Or how long have I been here? And
I haven't arrived yet.
I haven't arrived yet. And I'm reminded of, you know, having been a parent, hearing the kids say, are we there yet? Well, God, our parent, says, no, you're not. Just be here now and it's okay. And I have spoken.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Thank you for that sharing. Anybody else before we, Michael and then Jennifer, yes.
So I've read at least a couple of his books, and I love them, of course. And so I'm familiar with his practice of sleeping on the mattress and those things. But it's so beautiful to watch it. And what I'm struck by every time I read his work is the combination of being in the present moment and being there, and also these practices over time, writing a haiku a day, staying on the mattress at night, and so on. And so those are cumulative benefits, the combination of in the present moment and practices. And so I love anything he writes, anything you write, Judith, I love, just because those things just keep getting reinforced for me.
Thank you, Michael. And then I think it was, there was a question from Michelle. Is that video online? Yes, just Google Brother Paul Quinnen, and there's other videos of him that happened to be the PBS one. So just Google Brother Paul Quinnen, Quenon. Jennifer, I think you had your hand up next.
Yeah, I was struck by what he said, we forsake our true identity for a false identity. And I think it's no wonder that we're all seeking, and people are going to retreats, visiting monasteries, because we all seek to find who we truly are, which is God's. And no wonder we find difficulty in finding gratitude, because we're looking in all the wrong places.
Jennifer, that reminded me of, Merton talking always about finding the true self and taking off, shedding the false self. And that passage in Revelation where the writer says, I will give you a stone with a new name on it, known only to God. And I began to look at life is, our whole lives are that searching for that name, that identity that is given to us by God. So, yes, thank you for all the sharing. Pete put the link to Pope Francis on the chat room. Anything else?
Judith, we have one more hand up. Melissa,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This is Melissa. I was really appreciated the Brother Paul quote that was, contemplation is perhaps a big fat word for gratitude. And it reminded me of one of my favorite quotes is William Blake, which is just, gratitude is heaven itself. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. I had not heard that before. I had not heard that Blake quote. Thank you. Anybody else? And I apologize because I don't always see everybody on the screen. So
I don't either, but between the two of us, I think we can catch them.
Anybody else want to share? Well, I thought of that video of Brother Paul would make a good prelude to an activity that I think is important for us to do every 3 months or every 6 months, certainly every year of our lives. And it has to do with identifying those things that the spirituality writer Kathleen Norris calls our non-negotiables, I got to share the screen again. I'm sorry. And it involves asking ourselves a series of what I call contemplative questions. These particular questions were compiled by the spirituality writer and editor, John Sweeney. And I'll leave them up here for a bit, because what I thought we could do now is begin writing down what comes to mind to you as you reflect on these questions. And feel free, to walk around, to go to another room as you're doing this, but be sure to come back onto the screen, say in 10 minutes. See what you can do in 10 minutes, and then maybe we'll share with each other in either a big group or breakout rooms, whichever you would prefer, what that experience was like to reflect on these particular questions. Okay, so let's take 10 minutes or so to see what we come up with, and we'll take a little longer if people need longer time. Okay, maybe we could take just a few more seconds. I see some folks are still writing. The reason I say do this in 10 minutes is so that you don't get too bogged down in consciousness, that you just really, it really comes from the heart. So maybe one more minute to finish up. All right, before we go, there's some messages in chat, but we don't have to deal with them right now. We can see them before we leave. These are kind of hard questions, aren't they? So, I'll bite the bullet and be the first one to start. What I'd like you to say too is what the experience was like for you. And for me, it's always surprising. I always surprise myself with what I say when I do this exercise, because I'm at a different point in my life. So what am I living for? Living to find out my true identity, to be of service, to leave something behind that matters to someone, to love extravagantly. What is most important in my life? To be a good wife to my husband. We don't have any children. To use my talents to the fullest, to be of service to others. To spread Benedictine values to as many people as I can by the witness and actions of my life. How do I want to spend the rest of my time? Spending more time with my husband, writing books, writing poetry, guiding retreats. Notice no journalism in there. That was my career for nearly 40 years. What does God want from me? I think God wants me to live my life. I think God wants me to live my life. To remember being is just as important as doing. And to not leave this earth without seeing my true self with all its flaws, talents, gifts. And to not leave with a satchel full of regrets. I'm sure yours were far more interesting than mine. So would anybody like to share what the experience was like, and maybe if anything surprised you in the experience?
Jessica's got her hand up.
I think this was an important thing to do today. I've been doing a lot of praying and contemplating, especially at the year's end. And so to me, this was a very welcomed exercise. And I think I'd just like to, what surprised me was number 4 was what does God want from me? And in this past week, I came across a quote by Simone Weil in that attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity, and how God wants my attention. That's what God wants from me, and how generosity and gratitude have an essential link as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Jessica. So that number 4 was the clincher for you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So some of our retreatants at Mepkin have raised their hand.
Oh, absolutely.
Hi, it's Illuminati here. I'm sorry, but the camera, the way it is, you get to see the screen here instead of me. But anyway, I'm here. Okay, so it was here at Medkin that I finally understood the phrase that I'd read and heard so much, to be the face of God for someone, because I experienced it in such a palpable way that even a spiritually challenged person like myself couldn't miss it. And so the only question I could even begin to tackle in some degree was I guess, number 2. And my answer would be that I want to be the face of God for someone now and then. You know, the way that so many of the monks have been and continue to be for me. And, you know, at some point during the Eucharistic rite, when the priest is doing some priestly thing, I don't know what to call it, and there's silence, there's a prayer that I say all the time. And I think to me, this would be like my answer for all 4 of these questions, because I couldn't even begin to answer them since they're the reason why I keep coming back and I keep journaling and I keep doing retreats. And so my little prayer goes like this. Teach us how to love one another as you love us. And I'm speaking to Jesus. Teach us how to love ourselves as you love us. And teach us how to love you and our Father as you love him. And so I aspire for that to be sort of my life's journey. Thank you, I have spoken.
Well, thank you for that prayer. You know, that's what I always say. We give this retreat to each other. We learn from each other. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Would you mind putting the prayer in the chat rooms in case people want to jot it down?
And Jan's got her hand up next.
Okay. When I first looked at the 4 questions, I was like, oh dear, this is a little early for my brain to go deep. And I found it ended up being circular, because the one I could start working with was the 4th question, what does God want from me? As I wrote down a few ideas, I realized some of them were addressing the outer world and some were addressing my inner world. Outer world were things like to use what he gave me, you know, to those to whom much has been given, much shall be required, and to make things better. I was a corporate trainer. I wanted to make it easier for people to do their job. The inner world was a little bit of a surprise, because it was, first thing I came up with was to realize that my very breath is his. And to breathe is enough. So I sort of answered them in a reverse order. It's going to be a long process to work through those.
Yeah, and this is just the first time, you know, I mean, it's something to do periodically to go back to in 3 months and 6 months and a year and see what your answers are then. But thank you, Jan. Thank you so much for that sharing. Very powerful, especially the part about the breath. Yeah.
Pete's got his hand up next.
Hey.
Hi. As I thought about these 4 questions, I couldn't help but put them all together and realize that they've been the substance of what I've been wrestling with over the years, and most recently, maybe the last 2 or 3. And it's really the catalyst for the book I'm having published about blending Catholic faith and work. But in looking at my thoughts about this, I realized that I've written several prayers. I have a book of prayers I have for myself that I use. And one of them, which I'm also including in my book, stood out to me. And it goes this way. Dear God, I believe you led me to where I am today, my place, roles, and station in this life, so that I may fulfill your holy will. I thank you for the talents you've given me, and I thank the Holy Spirit for the charisms given to me. I need your help in discerning my charisms and using them and my talents excellently to give you glory in everything I think, say, and do. In the name of Jesus Christ, I humbly ask you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, together with the Blessed Mother and my patron saints and my guardian angel, to drive away all evil spirits from me and use me as you see fit as your instrument of goodness, wisdom, peace, mercy, and love. Amen.
Oh, thank you so much, Pete. That prayer will be in your new book, you say?
Yes, it's the last thing before it goes into the references and stuff like that.
Very good, very good. Yeah, it's if you're inclined, put it in the chat box so people can read it if you're inclined. Thank you. Otherwise, we'll have to wait till your book comes out. Thank you. Anybody else want to share?
Matilda's up next.
Yes.
Hi. Being in Advent time, it's given me the opportunity to reflect. I mean, many of, not exactly the same questions, but it's a time to see we're waiting for the Christ to come for the second time, although he's in us always and everywhere. So there is a kind of a little, if not contradiction, but the sense that that it's Christmas and we are waiting for him to come. When I go to those your questions, it reminds me of a song that it plays around this time of the year, that it's always when I start hearing it on the radio, makes me a little nervous. And the song goes, "So this is Christmas, and what have you done?" So it reminds me that it's a time to look at the year behind and what I'm going to do the next one. I'm retired from a very demanding work, which I thought it was very consequential, but in an environment, the bureaucracy and so on. So life has changed really now since I left that, and I have more time to do things that I like, which is now grandmothering. And it's interesting because I went into that after I had gone to many retreats and many thoughts about what I was going to do after retirement. And becoming a grandmother was not in the future. So it came, after some time. So what I'm trying to say is that perhaps what I'm being called to is to give birth to Christ every day. So what is I'm living for? To receive the love of God and give it back to everyone wherever I am.
Thank you, Matilda. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Again, as I say, you all are the most important people here, your insights.
Martha's up next.
Martha, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is so beautiful. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. That, Matilda, that really speaks to me as a Quaker, that, we believe that there is that of God or light within everyone. And, to me, what I'm living for is to be a loving person. Isaac Pennington, the old Quaker, said, "Our life is peace and love and tenderness." That might not be the right order, but something like that. And it really, I guess it seems hokey, but it is the essence of what, to be present to every day and being a loving person, whether it's to those in my family or to the stranger I meet, the grocery clerk, or a particular concern of mine, to be loving to God's creation. And I guess, how do I want to spend the rest of my life? It's being that loving person every day, being present and letting love be the first motion, which is another Quaker saying, which I think is just so, it's very, some of the Quaker sayings are really quaint, it's the old language, but let love be the first motion. Just let that sink in, right? If we all did that before we speak. And then I guess, what does God want from me? it's to let my life speak. And so if I can, if I can touch base with that love within, and then act out of reflection. I think a lot of times we're here because we're all so busy, and we want to pause and we want to remind ourselves of what really matters in life. And so to not act, go and do the latest whatever that seems to drag us into activity, but to really reflect before we decide what of those activities we want to engage in. So I think God's asking me to, just take advantage of this time to pause, and also, live in gratitude and let love be the first motion.
Thank you, Martha. I wrote down those Quaker sayings. I love them. I think the Quakers are very close to our Catholic contemplative tradition, or we're close to the Quaker tradition, I should say. Thank you so much.
Father Garrick is up next.
As I took in those questions, I said, oh, geez, I don't know whether I'm up for dealing with such heavy questions so early in the day. Plus, who wants to follow Paul Queenan, Interesting thing about Paul is that we've only spoken a couple times, but we're about the same age, and we both were born in West Virginia. And as he took off for Gethsemane Abbey, I took off for the minor seminary to become a priest. So we've kind of connected at some of the Merton conferences. But when I began to just write, I found I just had very simple answers. So what am I living for? I'm living to ultimately become one with the ground of my own being. And what's the most important thing for me to live for is to live in the present moment. And how do I want to spend the rest of my life? Being that unique person God's created me to be. What does God want of me? The same answer, being that unique person He's created me to be.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a beautiful phrase, the ground of our being, which also comes from Merton. Yeah. Beautiful phrase. One of my favorite Merton phrases.
Doug's up next.
Yeah, hi. Someone else earlier had followed sort of the same format that I did, which was the fourth question, as it was asked, we were asked to reflect on it. It just jumped out at me in such succinct fashion. It's probably the shortest, 2-word answer to any question I've ever been asked. But what does God want from me? And my answer simply was total surrender. And as I look back on my reflections for the other 3 questions, it seems that everything I have written is embedded and saturated by the total surrender. Even what I had shared earlier about, living each day aware that you will die. Is this the last? Because out of that total surrender comes faith and hope and love and charity and compassion and humility and all of these gifts and fruits of the Spirit. And some of the other answers of wanting to we often say to be of service, but I realized it's more about being in a state of service. I want to be in service, always service to my wife and my stepson and family and friends, and to share the talents that I have or that have yet to be cultivated. There's definitely a spirit of discovery and adventure in my nature. Travel the world with my wife, as much as there is a Mertonian solid stillness and solitude in me. There's actually, like was in Merton, this rich, deep, vibrant wish to experience the beauty and complexity and rhythms of the world. But ultimately, it all comes back to total surrender.
Doug, that reminds me of that famous Merton quote where he says, I want to write a book about everything, a book that has everything in it. Yeah.
Oh,
And
that speaks to me too, that quote.
to balance that with total surrender,
Yeah.
that's a tough one. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Oh, I think Tom, was that a hand, Tom, that you put up, or was that a clap? Okay, go right ahead, Tom.
You have to understand that I'm a narcissist. It's like an alcoholic is always an alcoholic until he dies or she dies. I'm a narcissist. And for over 3 decades, I lived my life as I'm the most important person God ever created. And then a priest down at Mepkin, who's lying out in the graveyard now, Leonard, I met him back in my Air Force days at Charleston Air Force Base. He was our auxiliary chaplain. Well, long story, much shorter. I struggle being a narcissist, and I focus more on others. And by focusing more on others, I've been able to see God, the image of God that we are all created, or as an earlier speaker said, the face of God. What I do for the rest of my life, I keep telling my partner in marriage that it'd be nice to be with her for another 30 to 45 more years. She comes back and says, right, wheelchair races. So we'll see what happens. But not to pick up on another person's word, the first speaker after you, Judith, was mentioned the word attention. So what does God want from me? I had put down 2 words, love and attention. And of course, we see God easiest through creation, which is, of course, around the pictures of Gethsemane, which you put, as well as what Father Garrick knows all around Mepkin.
Thank you for that sharing, Tom. Thank you. A quick question for Joy or Father. Do we go to noon or 11:30 today?
To noon. Is that what
Good.
you have, Father Garrett?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great, good.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else before we go on to something else I think might be helpful? That was beautiful. That sharing was beautiful. And Jonathan put some really good questions in the chat room. He kind of rewrote John Sweeney's questions, but he just sent them to me. So we'll try to get them out to the whole group. But Jonathan's questions were really good. And I think I'll use them at my next retreat, Jonathan. Jonathan said his first question was, who do I long to live for? How do I discover what's most important for me in being alive? How do my intimate friends hope I'll spend the rest of my life? That's an interesting one. How do my intimate friends hope I'll spend the rest of my life? And what do I want from God? So I think I'll have to include those questions the next time. Those are beautiful. But we'll try to get them out to the whole group. And then Victoria mentioned in the chat room that the ground of our being phrase comes from Paul Tillich. I think probably Merton used as well, maybe quoting Tillich. I don't know, but it's the title of one of Merton's collected works, I believe. Am I correct on that, Doug or Jonathan?
I defer to Jonathan on that one.
He might be away for a minute. He'll tell us later. Okay, well, that was kind of a hard thing, and you all tackled it, as you say, first thing in the morning. The next thing I'd like to do is something else that I find helpful to do periodically, and I do this every 6 months. I'm going to go back to screen share now. And that is, I have a list of Benedictine values, Benedictine monastic values. And I look at the list and I say, what ones do I need to focus on in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months? Or if it's the beginning of Advent, I'll say, which one of these do I need to focus on for Advent? Or if it's Lent, which ones do I need to focus on for Lent? And they change over time. I mean, sometimes it's been humility that I really need to work on in my life. And sometimes it's been balance and holy leisure. Sometimes it's been prayer. So what I thought we could do now, we kind of went from the macro questions. This would be sort of the micro question of what can we do right now? What can we do right now that could change how we're living our life in some small way? So you have these in your handouts. I can keep them up here on the board. Or would you like to go and have some time in small groups, say groups of 3, to look at this list, to discuss this list, or shall we just stay together in the big group? Anybody want to speak up about what a preference would be? We haven't had any small group activity yet.
The big group is very rich.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, was
I
that
agree.
Doug? Okay. All right. Well, then,
I think I feel the same way. I think this group dynamic is working quite well, I think.
beautiful then. Well, let's stay together as a group since we've bonded as a group. And let's take just 10 minutes or so to look over the list and to see which one just jumps out at us, because one or two is just going to jump out at you, I guarantee you. So we'll take some time to do that silently, and then in 10 minutes, let's see what time it is. It's 11:15 on the East Coast. Let's say 11:25-ish. Okay. All right. Okay. I'll leave the questions up for a while. And Martha put those beautiful quotes in the chat room, which is great. Okay, and Jonathan clarified that Merton used the hidden ground of love in a letter to students at Smith College. Yeah, I knew it. I knew he'd said it in some context, but he might have gotten it from Paul Tillich, Victoria. That's for sure. Okay, thank you, Jonathan, for that clarification. All right. Anybody want to talk about what jumped out at them on that list? And if it was something surprising. Was that, Michelle, was that a hand?
Sure, I'll do it, yeah. When I was looking through the list, I went right down to the bottom, the conservatio morum. And when I went back to the previous exercise, that's everything that was there answered that exercise. And it's because when I went through the questions from the previous to that written out as a value, I had put down, what am I living for? The Trinity and the earthly kingdom, whatever I'm here for. And to thy own self be true, sharing a message of divine healing, and God wants all of me and I want all of God. So it sort of fit right perfectly in there. And as I was looking through the other values, they've been working on consistently over the course of my life. So it brought me right to the bottom. That jumped out. I had to start backwards like a couple other people in the last exercise. From four to one, I went from bottom to top, and it confirmed that the bottom works.
Excellent. That conversatio is sort of the catch-all. It means conversion of life, literally. And it's the vow that it's one of the three vows that Benedictines take, along with obedience, conversatio morum, and
stability.
Stability. Thank you. I just blanked. Thank you. Stability, to stay at the same monastery. So, but conversatio is the catch-all. And someone once explained to me that conversatio comes from, versatio con, to turn with in Latin. And it's like a constant conversation you're having with life, and I like that. I like that, that metaphor for conversatio morum. We're in this constant conversation with life. So
I found
very
striving
good.
though to be an interesting word. Like I didn't expect striving to be in that definition because I always thought striving was sort of anti-productive to God's way. So I found that to be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Pete's up next.
Hi, so for myself, the first one was stability. I keep wondering whether or not the grass is greener. And I've confirmed that, yeah, the grass is greener, but do I really want to eat it? And I don't know, I'm still trying to figure that out. It's very weird. But I think along with that though is conversatio morum. And I think the two balance each other out for me to try to get me to calm down and not try to seek other pastures, that things are just fine. Lighten up. Trust God and things will be good, which takes me back to the prayer that I read before. So for me, those two are really quite instrumental, and I have to keep pounding myself in the head to make sure that I remember them, because I all too easily forget them in spite of all the thinking and writing that I've been doing. But the foundation is still there. Those two seem to be foundational to me.
Good, yeah. Stability is an interesting one, especially at this pandemic time, because we're in a forced stability almost. Yeah.
Maureen, I'm so sorry.
Victoria is putting a beautiful haiku in the chat box. When you get a chance, check that out. So go ahead, Maureen.
So I'd like to, as a beginner, I'd like to thank everybody because all the conversations model and give appropriate lane lines or structure to what I'm striving for. So it's wonderful to hear on this continuum of experience and just be able to immerse myself in it. So thank you for that. So related to my lovely haiku yesterday about life coming over the transom in a tidal wave, when I looked at this list, I said, well, there's stability, which you don't need to seek God elsewhere. And I'm going, well, okay, not sure I'm liking that one, but I get it. And then hospitality, all guests who present are welcomed as Christ. And I said, okay, lesson learned. And then the final one led me into contemplation, which is looking beyond the obvious. So for me, a lot of the work I'm doing is related to the resistance and the tension and the beyond the obvious. You're seeing this, you're asked to respond to this, but what are the triggers and the underlying things going on within you that you need to embrace and grow through? Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you for that sharing. Yeah.
Matilda's up next.
Okay, thank you. I looked into contemplation, particularly from the description of being mindful, living. I am in Virginia, and we are now just starting another suggested stay-at-home period, even with curfew at night. So no way to go out. So life happens much more inside my place and with the people that I love, basically. And very seldom encounters with people outside of my home. And so living in the midst of the pandemic gives me an opportunity to live mindfully. Some time ago, I discovered teaching at hand, and it was a great discovery. And as I was looking at the ones that you shared with us prior to the quotes that you shared prior to the retreat with us, Judith, I look at the one when he talks about the empty bowl and invite us to be appreciative of having food while so many other people don't have. It breaks my heart now to feel that I have access to healthcare when so many people don't have. And it's even worse to me when I hear some people who've had access to the best available care for COVID-19 and the most expensive one to brag that they've never felt better. And in a way, COVID was good and there's nothing to worry about. It's hard. It's hard to me. So I'm trying to maybe need to combine that with some of the others' attitudes to understand better where these people are coming from.
Thank you, Matilda. What you said there at the end about the health insurance situation and people struggling to even eat in America these days, it reminds me of something Sister Kathleen Egan, who was involved in Benedictines for Peace, said once to me. She said, contemplation counts for nothing unless it's also followed by compassion. You know, the desire to change what needs to be changed in our world. You know, it's just not enough to go off and sit under our tree and pray and this and that. You know, we also have to work. We have to work to change the things that need to be changed to build the kingdom. You know, what did Merton say? Me with my prayers, you with your work and prayers. You know, me in the cloister with my prayers, you outside with your work and prayers. We have to work together. So, absolutely. Thank you, Matilda, for that powerful sharing.
Martha's up next.
I hesitate to raise my hand because I want everybody else to have an opportunity to share, but you all have inspired me so much. And the one that popped out at me just happened to be at the top of the list, and that's listening. And that's been a challenge for me my whole life. And it's something that I work on. I was in public service. I still do on a part-time basis, work in local government. And so we listen to people come to public hearings and, you know, you're listening, but then you're also thinking about how you're going to respond. And I wasn't really listening, I think, over the years in a deep way. And I found that, you know, in my relationships with people and whatever. So listening with the ear of your heart, I got a really huge lesson in that. And it was a gift. It was a difficult gift that was given to me by a dear friend who lost his son about 18 months ago. And I had struggled with how to help. You know, you just feel so helpless, right? There is not really words to say. It's not a time for words. That's the gift that he gave me that I learned in a very difficult way, that I needed to listen. And I needed to listen with the ear of the heart. And that was how I could most help him. And in doing that, I learned so much through him about grace and about, I'm sorry, I'm going to cry, but, you know, about finding love again and, you know, and finding that love goes on when people leave us. So I'm still working. It's definitely a work in progress. I probably should have put that on my last list, but listening is something, you know, so important with the ear of the heart.
Well, thank you, Martha, for that powerful sharing. So very true. Thank you.
Doug is up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo, Judy, that thank you to Martha for that really beautiful share. And for the tears too. We are blessed by your tears. They are an important part, I think, of God's expression in our lives. The one that jumped out at me, and this might be more of a wish than what God feels that I need right now, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's balance and holy leisure. These last 8 months have been a profound challenge for me, having dealt with COVID personally, being ill for a number of months and having another medical problem. So I basically had 8 months sort of a dark night. Not really being able to do much of anything. My wife being this absolutely beautiful angel, honoring her vows to look after me, and I wish nothing more now than to be able to travel with her somewhere and to experience some holy leisure, and to sort of reorient that balance that for so many of us in different ways has been shifted on its axis because of the implications of the pandemic and the restrictions, et cetera. And so there's that deep wish to just regain a certain degree of life equilibrium on the heels of this sort of deep dive into contemplative reflection on physical challenges, and even reflecting on the aging process as you're suffering with ailments, and thinking, well, I expect that I will be better, but what if I'm not? People live with challenges for their whole lives, and can I live with grace and humility and et cetera? So it's been an intense period of time for sure. And holy leisure sounds like just what the divine presence could order up at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. We're keeping you in prayer for your complete recovery, my friend. Thank you.
Jessica's up next.
I also want to say, Martha, thank you for blessing us with your tears, and for everybody who has shared. My two were stability and conversatio. I am in a discernment process right now about becoming a hermit in more of a formalized way. So this year I'll be continuing that process, and so it's going to be a one of a change of life, and we'll see what happens. And so I ask for your prayers as well.
Absolutely, Jessica. You will have them. Thank you.
Thank you.
What a discernment. Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a question back at Mepkin.
Hi. The one that feels most important, sorry, this is Illuminata. I'm actually the only one here. So the one that seems most necessary to me right now is hospitality. And I mean that in the sense of serving the world somehow as best you can. But the one that immediately just went zap when I read the quote that you had was the silence. Not so much because obviously we need it and it's important, and especially during meditation, it's like 10 fighter jet planes in there, trying to figure out which one gets the voice. But it was that thing about the secret that you can only hear in silence. And it spoke to me because the first time, I don't remember if it was Jeremiah or Isaiah, the first time that I read the verse that said that he will call you by your true name, completely just grabbed me. And that would be the one secret I would love for God to divulge in my ear, because if I ever see God and he calls me by my true name, I know then that I will know truly who I am, so I've always loved that. And then I wanted to just quickly share something that I finally figured out. I particularly look forward to Father Garrick sharing. And I couldn't quite figure out, because everybody has wonderful things to say, but I got it this morning. Plumbing the depths with an intentional economy of words. And I think that is an enviable trait. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow, very good.
I'm not seeing any more Zoom hands raised. Are there some raised that I'm not seeing, Judith?
No, has everybody had a chance to? Oh, Emily has her hand up. Yes, Emily.
Hi, I struggle greatly, and the one that came out to me most of all is contemplation. And there's a great aloneness in my life, which is very different than loneliness in my eye. Thomas Merton's quote here of spontaneous awe at the sacredness of being, and just the richness of the world just as it is. I'm not wanting to search in many places, which would be there and here is really where I want to stay. And so what I find is the aloneness pulls me to poetry and haiku, and keeps me grounded in the being of just here. And contemplation is sort of that that anchor.
Well, that's beautiful, Emily. You know what you said about aloneness is not loneliness.
No.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
Has everybody had an opportunity who wants to share? All right, well, we could, no one says we don't have to wrap up early, and I know someone had to leave at 11:45 anyway. So I'm going to go back to the screen share for a moment. And go to, again, one of my Broadway shows. I always find so much wisdom in Broadway, in the lyrics of Broadway shows. You know, I grew up outside New York City and then spent most of my adult life and career in the Midwest. But this is a song from Rent that goes with our theme. And it's about, he talks about how what comprises a year. 525,600 minutes. So we're about to have in 2021 a new 525,600 minutes to do something with. And the question, how do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, in laughter and strife. In 525,600 minutes, how do you measure a year in the life? How about love? Which is what Martha was telling us so beautifully with those quotes. Let love be the first, and our life is peace, love, and tenderness. So I think we'll, as instead of a closing prayer, we'll hear from the folks of Rent saying this song, and feel free to get up and dance and move your arms and what have you. We've been sitting for a while because it's a really beautiful song. So let's hope that this works. All right, measure your life in love. Okay, well, that I think wraps us up for this session. I hope to see you this afternoon. I think we come back at 2 o'clock Eastern and 1 o'clock Central. And I don't know what time in Boise, Michael, or in Seattle. I don't know what time it'll be in Seattle, but anyway, thanks for a beautiful morning, for a beautiful and rich morning. And we'll come back this afternoon and we'll talk about esteem for silence.
Thank you, Judy. Have a wonderful break.
Thank you. Have a nice lunch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Song it was awesome.